You're listening to an encore presentation of Life Talk with Wade Sorochan. Highlights of previous shows featuring special guests and open line discussions. Since this is a pre-recorded presentation, please do not call. And now, Life Talk with Wade Sorochan on AM 930, The Light.
And welcome back to the program. For almost 30 years, Albertans have shared their love of Jean Perry and her crowd-pleasing recipes with the world. For 18 years before that, Jean Perry earned a place in the hearts of her fellow townspeople in small-town Vermilion as a caterer, who was most often asked, "Hey, Jean, will you handle it?" From 1963 until her first cookbook was published in 1981, catering filled Jean's schedule. Operating from her home kitchen, she made a practice of always offering a wider selection of dishes than was expected by her customers. The inspiration for Jean Perry to create the company's coming cookbook series came to her from the empty plates that followed every catering function, coupled with an outpouring of requests for her recipes. And it was April 14th, 1981, marked the debut of 150 Delicious Squares, the first company's coming cookbook in what would soon be Canada's most popular cookbook series. Jean's positive attitude, warm personality, and impressive record of accomplishments made her a perfect role model during her catering days and now continue to keep her in high regard as Canada's most popular cookbook author. So what do people really think of the lady who has sold over 27 million cookbooks? Well, in short, people can relate to her small-town homemaker who went on to fame and fortune without compromising her values or her good taste. And joining me on the phone line right now is company's coming founder Jean Perry. Jean, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure for me.
Well, thank you. It's great to have you back again. And we'll talk about the sale coming up tomorrow in just a moment, Jean. But you just heard my last conversation there. I'm sort of taking a poll here as far as, what people call the three meals of the day. Jean, what do you call the three meals of the day?
I call them breakfast, dinner, and supper, but not too many people. If somebody invites us, like over the last few years especially, if someone would invite me for dinner, I'd say, "You mean dinner, supper time, or lunchtime?"
Ah.
When I grew up, we had our dinner at noon.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yes. And mind you, we had sort of it was almost like another dinner at supper time. But then my kids, when they grew up, it was the same thing. We had our dinner at noon. And that was because they were home at noon. Now, I can understand people that aren't always in reach of home. They take their lunch.
Yes.
So that's how come I believe it's called lunch. And all my kids say dinner for the evening meal, and I'm still a prairie girl at heart. I guess I say supper still.
I still go with supper, and yet if I'm going out, if my wife and I are going out, we don't say we're going out for supper. We say we're going out for dinner.
I must get on to
that. Well, great. Well, thank you for being a part of that poll. Well, Jean, 1981, boy, oh boy, almost 30 years ago, 150 Delicious Squares came out. Did you have any idea then that this would become so popular?
Oh, no, I didn't. If someone had asked me what is success, I would have said selling the first printing. I didn't know at the time that 5,000 books sold. That was a bestseller in Canada. Well, I ordered 15,000 for the first book.
Oh, wow.
Because ignorance was bliss, and that was a lot of books. And I thought, if we just sell this many books, that'll be a success.
And, that one, your first book was a huge success. I mean, what would you attribute that success? I mean, because there's a lot of, cookbooks out there. Why were yours so popular right from the start?
Well, perhaps the method that I used. I used to have a lot of cookbooks that I didn't really like certain things in them, but to do one myself, I got to do everything the way I liked it. Like I wanted the page numbers in the corners so that you could see them instead of, I had books, the page numbers were near the spine of the book, and you couldn't flip through it and see it very easily. I also had recipes in books that you'd see maybe a list of 5 or 6 ingredients, and then you would start cooking with the bottom one, the last ingredient. So I wanted ingredients down in the order that you use them, and I don't know, just things, and not only that, just the name Squares itself. More so, I think, in times coming up. I don't know if it's that popular now or not. I really can't remember, because I was going to so many things in years gone by, and when I'd say, well, can I bring something? Oh, bring a pan of squares. And that was the most important thing when I was catering.
Yeah.
Because, we had the wedding banquet. Dinner.
Right.
And then they would have a dance and lunch at midnight or 11 o'clock, whenever they wanted to. So for the wedding meal, I always had a dessert that you eat with a fork. Like not just a scoop of ice cream or something. I had a real dessert.
Yep.
Well, then for the dance, I had 10 varieties of squares. And I was always trying new squares, and people even brought me the odd one too, because they would notice I hadn't had that one. And it was really fun, because every time when I had a different one, we used to joke in the kitchen, wondering how many people are going to ask for this recipe, and we were never disappointed.
And that's how it all started. People kept asking you for recipes. Where did you get the love of cooking from?
Well, I don't know. My mom and her mom, I suppose. I always did like to cook, and I often wonder, I forgot to ask my dad while he was still living just how good my things were that I made, because he praised them so much that I just automatically wanted to make some more. And he just thought I was such a good cook, and I would try things.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just did like to, I guess, I can't really explain how you get, because I had some friends that would rather clean house than cook.
Yeah.
They like that end of it, and not me. I'd rather cook.
Yeah. Well, obviously, it must be very rewarding for you, back in your catering days, just to see how people really enjoyed your food, and now, through the cookbooks, how many people are enjoying them that way. And like you said, you always, your approach was always, quick and easy recipes using everyday ingredients.
Oh, yes. And that's the main thing. I had experience, well, only once, and then I learned my lesson. I bought an ingredient to make a recipe that I'd never heard of this ingredient before. And then, of course, when I finally bought it and took it home, then I couldn't find the recipe that I'd wanted to make. So it was a complete waste.
Yeah. And I love tell everyone what your golden rule of cooking is. Well,
you never share a recipe that you wouldn't serve yourself.
Yeah, that's a good rule.
Yeah, it is. It is. Some people will give recipes, and I've heard stories. I don't know if they're all true or not, that when you ask someone for a recipe, they might not even give you the proper ingredients. Yeah. I don't know if anybody's that mean out there or not.
So the 150 Delicious Squares, is that your bestseller? Or I'm thinking Muffins and More was obviously very huge as well. Oh, yes, that has sold over 1 million, and Squares is over 1.3 million, and Casseroles is over 1 million. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So there's not really one that stands out above the others. Those are probably, there's a group of popular ones that people have really gravitated towards.
Yes. And Squares, I should tell you one humorous thing about the Squares book.
Okay.
We had a rep from another company years ago. This was back in 1981, because it was the only book out. And he was very interested in looking at it. And then when he put it down, and he just said, well, it's really, really too bad. He says, Blue will never sell food. And
so he didn't like the color of the book.
He didn't. He thought blue and food. But anyway, we've had lots of colors on our books, and they sell the food.
Yes, they do. You can prove that they're sold, definitely. Jean, we just need to take a quick break here. I want to talk about the big Scratch and Dent sale tomorrow.
Sure.
And I want to ask you this question, because I've asked my audience this question before, and we're going to do that again today and give away copies of your first book, 150 Delicious Squares, as well as An Appetite for Life, your biography by Judy Schultz. We packaged those together, and we're going to give those away. And we're going to ask people to tell us their cooking or baking disaster story.
Oh, that would be fun.
And I want to get one from you as well. So we're going to take a quick break here. We're talking with Companies Coming founder Jean Perry, and more of your calls as well coming up right after this.